Welcome to Greek for a Week. I'm glad that you have decided to view another week's worth of work here in First Peter. We are looking at the final two verses, verse 21 and 22 of the paragraph that we've been considering the last couple of weeks, and that is verses 18 through 22. I want to look through verses 21 and 22 this week, and then next week we will diagram the entire passage and make a few comments as it relates to interpretation and some other things, because I know this has been a difficult paragraph to interpret over the years, and I haven't really touched on that throughout each of these weeks. But next week, when I put things together, I'll make a few comments that way. So we can begin by translating, saying, which also, as an antitype, now saves you, that is, baptism, not the removal of the dirt of the flesh, but the appeal of a good conscience toward God through the resurrection of Jesus Christ, who is at the right hand of God, having gone into heaven, angels and authorities and powers having been subjected to him. Okay, so we'll make note of a few things here which probably are not too terribly difficult, but we'll touch base with them anyway. So the first verbal form here, soze, again, probably straightforward. That's a third person singular, present active indicative of sozo. Your relative pronoun that began the verse here, verse 21, the ha, and then of course the kai along with it, I translated which also. So that relative pronoun is the subject then of soze, and its antecedent, if you go back to verse 20, would be the hudatas, would be for the word for water. So he's saying the water, and then the connection here with your relative pronoun, which also, what does the water do? It saves there, I think is the point he's making. The humas saves you, so there's your direct object of soze. The baptisma, that would be a nominative of apposition to the ha. That's why I translated it, which also, as an antitype, now saves you, that is baptism. So that's the nominative of apposition to the relative pronoun. And then, of course, Allah, here's your strong contrast. Okay, your strong contrast. The emphasis, again, is on the positive phrase in comparison to the negated phrase. The negated phrase was not the removal of the dirt from the flesh, but, here's your strong contrast, but the appeal of a good conscience toward God. Okay, that was what Peter's trying to say there. And then the through phrase, through anastaseos, through the resurrection, that would be the means modifying soze. So how are we saved? It's through the resurrection and, of course, of Jesus Christ here. Your hosts, another relative pronoun down in verse 22, is the nominative subject of the verb esten here, but also its antecedent is referencing Jesus Christ. He is the one who is at the right hand of God. And then the paruthes here is our verbal form. That is an aorist middle participle. masculine nominative singular of paruamai, and I would suggest there that is likely temporal, which is why again I translated it having gone into heaven. And then your hupa ta genton. Here that would serve as your aorist middle participle again, genitive plural of hupatazo, suggesting that your genitive absolute, which would indicate a temporal participle as well. And then all of the words down here at the bottom in your genitive case, the angalon, exousion, and duna meon, each of those genitive forms, okay, would go along with your genitive participle here. So they serve as the subjects of the genitive absolute. So there's verses 21 and 22. Again, that wraps up our paragraph. We'll diagram next week. Appreciate you following along. And yeah, have a great week.